Okay. So, welcome everybody to today's Zoom meeting. The topic is an interview with Pansori Living Sound founder Yvonne de Bruijn. So maybe I introduce a bit about myself. I'm a life coach and authorized trainer for spirodynamics. I participated in Pansori Living Sound training since last December, I think, which lasted for about 6 months. I was very much surprised by the philosophy, I think innovative ideas about the sound. Since sound has been in human history, I think for tens of thousands of years. But I think the idea emerged from Yvonne is sort of revolutionary, I would say. And I have been also experienced using the, I would say, the techniques taught during the training to deal with a couple of my, or say, the childhood traumatic experiences. Actually, I cried for a couple of times during the self-healing sessions. So I'm so impressed, and I believe this philosophy. I try to use this word. Should be to be broadened to let more people, especially in the Chinese-speaking region, to get some ideas to know, and for people who are ready to participate in the same training delivered by teacher Yvonne and her co-worker. Okay, it's my brief self-introduction. So now maybe I invite Yvonne. Please introduce yourself briefly. Thank you.
I'm Yvonne de Bruijn. You pronounced it better than most of the French people do, so that's already very nice.
Oh.
I was educated originally as a psychotherapist, and about 30 years ago I got this flash to start with the Pansori singing, and I started first a research project to find out really what the sound can do. And for me it is very interesting to speak to Chinese speaking public, because China has such a long history of working with sound and a long history of integrating sound in its medical work. So when I was invited to share Pansori Living Sound in the East, at first I thought, I have nothing to teach there, because there's so much part of your culture. But then when we went and we shared the Pansori approach, people said, this is an opening of the sounds that we usually use in the Chinese way of singing. So since then, I was always very keen to bring it to Chinese-speaking countries, because I sensed and I experienced that there is a groundwork where Pansori is like a new, you said a revolutionary approach. It's like Pansori is a way of using sound that is appropriate to the state of the earth and the state of its people who live on the earth now. So that's why it is also different. I researched many different sound therapies and singing therapies, and I learned a lot from that. But every time I had this sense, I'm looking for something else. I'm hearing other sounds, different sounds. And these sounds should be embodied on earth, should be brought to earth. So that's finally how Pansori Living Sound developed, from hearing those sounds that are at the edge of what we can hear. And I also think you asked me earlier what is specific about Pansori Living Sound, and I think that is something specific that in the development of the Pansori singing voice, we develop these high frequencies that are in the sound, what we call brilliance. And those sounds seem to have a very specific influence on the healing capacity of the voice and of the sounds. So I don't know if this is enough as an introduction, Frank. I dive right in.
Before this interview, I did some research, and I found on your official website, though it's about, I think, back 10 years back, it mentioned you started as a body-centered therapist about almost 40 years ago, so 1985 it mentions. Can you speak a bit about that? Is that your first career?
My first career was in hospitals.
Okay.
Where I worked with people who had a kidney transplant.
Okay.
And that was mainly counseling. And from the counseling, I had this sense, we can talk, but talking is not enough to solve the problems. We should somehow include the body. So then I started searching for a body-centered psychotherapy where we use the signals of the body as a sign of what is happening inside the person's mind and emotions. And for a long time, that has been my professional home. I really loved and still do working with the body, because the body cannot lie. It tells us exactly what is our next step, we can say.
Yes, yeah, I fully agree. Yeah, as I know, there's some books in the name. Your body is your unconsciousness.
Yeah.
So our unconsciousness, they never lie. They only tell the truth.
And they guard everything. They keep it alive until we are ready to become conscious about it.
Yes.
It's like it does very good things to us. It stores things.
Yes.
I never was looking for working with sound. I've been singing my whole life, but as you can say as a hobby, as something I like to do.
Yeah. Okay.
And Pansori Living Sound actually started when a former client of me came to me and said, I have this brain damage, severe brain damage. No memory, the orientation in time and space, no concentration. And she looked at me and she said, the doctors cannot do anything for me anymore. I think you can help me. And I thought, yes, I would very much like to do that, but how? At that time, I was still working as a body therapist, but I felt every method would be not subtle enough, not tender enough. And at some point during the conversation, my mind went blank, and there were these 4 words, you can only sing. Which, of course, I dismissed because I thought this is so strange. I cannot possibly tell her. But the same happened 3 times.
Oops. Oh.
And then I realized I know nothing else. Everything I know is not appropriate for this problem. So I told her, this has come to my mind. Are you open to experiment? And she said, of course, Yvonne, let's try. So I organized to put her down on the floor and I sang with my hands, not touching her head, but around her head. And I started intuitively, because then I didn't know anything yet. Singing long tones on vowels. And what I noticed was that between my hands, there was a lot of energy movement. That was the only concrete information I had. So I kept singing until that energy movement stopped. And I sang a few times her name. And then she sat up and she said, I think this has helped, Yvonne. And I thought, this can be it. So I proposed a next meeting and she said, no, it's not necessary. And she couldn't work anymore, she couldn't travel, her life was in ruins. So I said to her, please let me know what will happen next, what will happen to you. And about a month later, she phoned me and she said, I want to thank you, Yvonne, because almost all the systems have disappeared except taste and smell are still a little bit disturbed. But I'm sure that will also heal. Thank you. And then she put the receiver down and I am standing there with this phone in my hand and I'm thinking, what has happened? So that was the beginning of Pansori, where I asked this question of what had the sounds done to a brain that was so damaged? Because I was already sure it was not something that I had done. There was something in the sound that put the self-healing process, that started the sound healing, the healing process of the brain. That there was some communication with this damaged brain or whatever. And then I said to my partner, I'm going to find out what happened, because this is so extraordinary. We have to know. And that's how it started.
Yeah, that's very impressive. And I think from then you become a kind of sort of a scientist after.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then I followed 3 lines.
Uh-huh.
I followed the line of which sound are needed from the voice. I followed the line, what does sound do to the body, and can I feel that? Can I experience that? And the 3rd line was, what does science say about it? Are there scientists who can help me find out? Who can test what I'm exploring and finding? So, and I said, I'll do this for 3 years. But finally, it took me 12.
Oh, okay. So you have been a scientist for 12 years.
I don't call myself a scientist. I call myself somebody who explores.
Yes.
Because I explore from the sound and the experience, and then see if science has something to say about that, has something to add. And luckily, sometimes it has.
Yes. So I think you're a great explorer, I would say, even not scientist. And I'm curious. I have a question. So, to me, the voice, you can only sing. It's a kind of an inner voice, you think? Or maybe like higher self, or sort of the source?
Maybe I experienced it as coming into this empty brain. As a calling. As some,
so,
and maybe it came from the source. That's possible.
Yeah. Actually, my question is, was that the first time you really listened to your inner voice?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I've been always doing that. But so. I never got such strange sounds, sentences.
Okay. Yeah. Pretty understandable. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna read the question list. Maybe please, Yvonne, share some ideas or experiences. How you feel you're different, or you were different from the people around you, maybe since you were very young, how you think or how you behave or whatever. Because I think you just has the creativity to explore, to discover things most other people may never imagine in their lives.
Good question, Frank. Something to really think about. I come from a very small village, close to a river. And I've always felt very connected to the river, to the flowing of the river. Because I felt that tells me there is a bigger world, there is a universe. And I was a you can say, a shy and a quiet child when I grew up. But I was always looking and listening. How people do things, why they do things. And a personal experience that has shaped me very much was when I went to high school. My family was poor, and I went to a high school with rich kids.
Oh.
And I didn't know what the rules were there. I didn't understand that culture. So I had to be more watchful even. And then the only thing I felt I could do was to have great notes. So I studied very, very hard, thinking that will help me to enter that world. And when we had the examination, the director said there are 3 people who have the best notes. Number 3 was a girl who hated me. Number 2 was somebody else. And I was the best of the school that year.
Oh.
And then what shocked me was that the director said, it is a pity that such a girl from modest circumstances is the best of the school. And I took my diploma and I ran away. And I think that is become a decisive moment in my life, where I feel I can do anything to fit in, to imitate the others, to be the best. But it won't help. It will bring me nothing. So it has given me a change of direction. Later on, I met a teacher from that school who I told this. And he said, I'm very sorry to hear that. And I said, don't be sorry, because it has given me the enormous freedom to find what is my calling, what is my way. And it was painful at that moment, of course. But it helped to break this idea that fitting in will help us. Pansori would have never come if I had asked myself on forehand, is it useful what I'm doing? Even a friend of mine became very angry because he said, I was, I think, around 40 at that time. He said, Yvonne, what are you doing? You're giving up your career, you're crazy. Nobody is waiting for this. And then I listened inside and I said to him, maybe not, but I'm waiting for it. I want this answer to my question. What can the sound do? And that I think that inner attitude started during that high school period. So I often think our pains and how you can say it's a trauma, they guide us when we really can look at them.
Yeah, thank you, Yvonne. Share with us so deep experience and feelings.
Yeah.
So assume that high school experience would be, I would not say trauma, because we say trauma maybe till before 10 years or 12 years old.
Yeah,
Childhood
exactly.
trauma. It's just a sort of setback in our life. Because, but I think that would be psychologically would be a great turning point.
Yeah.
Yeah, in your life. What I felt, you build up a great self-confidence. Maybe it's also contributed to your self-esteem, I would guess. Yeah, from that experiences, 3 years, right?
Yeah, and then you can say I threw it all away to start this discovery of the sound.
Yes.
Which was, yeah. And I always say to people, nothing has changed me more than working with the sound and sharing that experience, because it's such a rich world that we enter.
Yes. Yeah.
When we enter the sound, it's, yeah.
It's I would say enormous possibilities.
Yeah.
So my next question for you would be, I think that decision you just decided to throw away what you just have acquired through your strives, your hard work. Yeah, that kind of thing takes courage, great courage.